Okay.
Got it.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We'll wait a minute for John, for our secretary.
You have to ask.
Did anybody?
Where is he?
Mhm.
Do you guys know who Dave
Who that
is?
is?
Dave who?
This
He's-
person?
What's? That's Wayne Alexander.
Well, that's his daddy. It's
This person?
Dave underneath Dottie.
Oh,
Where my cursor is?
That one there, Dave, I don't know. who that
Dave,
is.
can you identify yourself, please?
off my desk, and I had a whole stack of stuff I needed, and I was in such a rush. 'cause I was so-
Dave Mead, Pinecone 841.
Oh, that's
Thank
Dave, it's
you.
my neighbor. Hi, Dave, how you doing? I was wondering if that was you out there this morning.
I saw that car there. I was wondering whose it was.
That's mine, well, it's me. Hey, by the way, I installed one of those Nest thermostats yesterday. Boy, that thing is slick, I like it.
Yeah, there's good.
No, yeah, because everybody was at fault. I mean,
Are you here by yourself or is Sandy with you? Dave? Oh, you're muted.
nothing with,
Sandy's here with me as well.
I said, yes, but we thought.
How about you?
No, Sue stayed home.
Yeah.
And then I started laughing and I said, that's okay, John. this
I'm
is-
just here, I'm leaving tonight.
Yeah, we thought. Oh, yeah, you said that. I quote you. We thought.
okay.
Connections?
No, I did one. I must have put it
Yeah.
aside. It's in there.
Francine, I don't think I've met you.
We got a lot more participation today than we did yesterday.
Thank you, Rick.
I saw, are we still muted?
No.
No, we're
No.
not muted. Can you mute us for a second?
You did.
Okay. I got about 9:05. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the order. John? Looks like we have everyone present on the board except Kathy.
Okay, well, in that case, then we can declare that a quorum is present, and also I can certify that the meeting was properly posted and board members were notified in a timely fashion and owners as well.
Okay. And next thing would be approval of the minutes.
Correct. And I don't know, did you guys get printed copies there at the lodge?
Oh, no,
Of the minute.
Well,
no, not of the minutes.
it's not, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
As you know, Rick, and then to all the other board members, that about a week ago, I sent out all 3 sets of minutes the regular meeting that occurred in September, and then the special meeting that occurred in September, and the special meeting that occurred in October. And so you should have all received that several days ago, and I presume you've all had a chance to review.
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept and approve the minutes of the meetings of 9/9, 9/22, and 10/14.
A second.
Okay, John, Greg, second.
It was great.
Ron.
Oh, it's
Ron.
Ron, I think. Yeah.
Oh, Ron,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so go ahead, Rick.
Okay,
I mean, call for a vote.
okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes of the meetings? Aye.
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 Okay, I guess we had 6-0.
That's for, you need to.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, no one opposed.
Thank you.
Okay. Really, as far as president's report, don't really have much of anything other than we worked through the budget yesterday, and we have some challenges this year. We have an item that we're working through that I don't want to say a whole lot about at this time. We just have to gather some information because we just don't know. So we'll work through that, and the budget that we landed on yesterday, I'm very happy with. So we'll go through it today and see if everyone else agrees. So next item would be architectural review. We had 2 items. First one was unit 841, and the owner just wants, he's putting in a gas fireplace, and he just wants to vent it through the side of the building rather than going through the roof. And there should be no issues with that. It's actually preferred by maintenance to go through there. There's less chance of a leak, and it does not face any other unit. So I make a recommendation that we approve the venting of the gas fireplace for unit 841.
Rick, that is your motion.
Yes,
Need a second. Ask for a second.
do we have a second?
I second.
Is that Ron?
That's
Yes.
me.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, John, that was 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay, the second one was unit 827. And the owner was wanting to put a window in at the top of the stairs. And that was the one that I'd sent the email to all the board requesting their input on, and everyone agreed. There's a little bit, you probably can't see it. But she gave us a rendering of pretty much what it would look like. And we were all in agreement at the time.
You see that?
So
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. So I make a motion that we approve the installation of a window in unit 827 of Pinecone. Is there a second for that one?
I'll second. Barry.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
And was-
opposed?
Was Jerry the seconder?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And yeah, I've already discussed that. I think she knows. Okay. Next thing would be rules and regs. Ron,
Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to put a reminder out there that we do have a policy regarding dogs, pets, whatnot, and we've had some issues come up recently where we even had an animal that was injured. So I want to remind everyone about the rules and regulations with dogs and other pets as well. And if you got questions, you're not sure what you can do with your pet or what you can do, call me, email me, and we'll make sure we get you the right information. And again, we ask everyone to work together on this because we want to have a dog-friendly area, but we need everyone to work together on policies and procedures and maintain hopefully a safe area as well. So appreciate everyone's help on that.
okay. I don't see that Scott's on. So for water and sewer, we think we're to the point of just resolving one issue, and then we can go ahead and complete that deal. So we're hoping that in the very near future that we can resolve that issue and we can have that taken care of. So Elisa, do you have anything?
Not much on the business side. I did want to announce that Paige Coleman, who you may know from the front desk, is now, we've promoted her to Human Resources Manager and Front Desk Manager, or Human Resources and Front Desk. She's done a great job.
Okay, we all want to welcome Paige. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
Property report. I have a couple of positive things to discuss on the oversized parking program we started the last July, I think it was. We've already generated enough parking rent that we've paid for all the signs and the posts and the installation and everything, so that was good. And we had zero, and last year when I started, the first couple of months were pretty tumultuous and the campers were parking all over the place and there was a lot of unnecessary noise that was generated. And it's been a huge success. We didn't fill them all up. We generated, $1,500 or something in revenue just in these last few months. And we didn't have any conflicts. We didn't have any phone calls. We didn't waste any time trying to figure out who was parked where and why. So Ron, I appreciate your help on getting that all put into place.
Oh, thank you.
Second item was the landscape efforts we're going to start next year. There's been a committee formed that put a lot of time into a very good long-term plan, a lot of thought about how to move forward, what our goals are for the long term. We made progress on our budget yesterday. We're going to start a significant step this year. We've gotten into the detail of the planning that's going to allow us to meet some goals a lot faster, more effectively than we did this year. So I'm really, really excited about the landscape for next year. Our labor budget was bumped so that we're going to be able to actually trim our bushes when we need to. So that's all I got for the property report.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Jim, can you let us all know who's on that landscape planning committee?
Yeah, we can get that out to everybody.
Hey, I would like to interject, Mark is heading that up with a pretty good team and they've put in a ton of work. And their planning and the stuff they've coordinated with Tim and others is, I got to talk to Mark a little bit about that. I would ask people to catch up with him and let him brief everyone on what the plan is. It's pretty exciting. I'm glad to see that someone really took the reins on that one. So, and And we just need to double or triple the budget. No big deal.
Well, I think Mark is going to be planning on putting on a little presentation of what we're going to be doing next year in the January
Yeah.
meeting. So we'll look forward to that.
There was a question from Dottie. I didn't catch the end of it. Okay, is the budget allocated yesterday to landscaping sufficient to address ongoing issues of poor maintenance and sprinkler system problems?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, it is.
And she'll see that when we go
Yeah,
through the.
Yeah, and we'll be going through all of that here very shortly.
Rick, could I ask you a question?
Certainly.
For the benefit of those who may not know Mark, I think it'd be good to identify. He is Mark Paliza, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think he's a Gamble Oak owner.
That is correct.
Come on up, Mark.
Just get into
Come
the,
on over.
get into the camera.
Mark's here,
Just
just
get over
right
here,
behind me.
right behind him.
Okay.
Here's Mark.
Oh,
This is
there-
Mark.
There he is in the flesh.
Take a bow.
Well, I just want to make sure that those that are online that are not in the room are aware of who, we refer to people we know as Mark, and they may not know who that is. So it's good to identify them by their last name too.
Yeah,
Everybody down in Gamble Oak knows Mark.
yeah. And to get back to your question, Jerry, the people that I know right offhand, of course, Mark is heading it. Greg is the representative from the board. We also have Trish Layfield, Dottie Alexander, Rich Wiltz, and
Diane.
Diane Embry.
Thanks, Rick.
You're very welcome. So moving on, we'll present the budget and go through that.
Okay, let me get the share screen thing going here. Okay, what you should all see on your screens at the moment is the budget worksheets. The board went through all this yesterday in about a 4-hour session.
Yeah.
Went line by line through the budget to be proposed for a vote today. I'll quickly go through the pages and identify a few things. There are a couple of areas that might need further discussion, and then if the board has anything else they want to bring up, follow up from yesterday, we can do that. This first major section is our revenues. The columns, column C, 2021 budget as approved last year for the 2021 fiscal year that we're currently in. Column D is the year-to-date spending against those budgets. Column E is what we estimate will be spent in addition for November and December on those budgets, those line items. And then column F is the total estimated spending against the budgets for the full year. We use this column plus empirical knowledge, evidence, whatever other resources we have to then decide what we think the budget for 2022 will be. And we have most of those nailed down. We may have some further discussion on a few of these items. One I have a note on, Lisa, is the transfer fees. We
Yeah,
talked
so-
about, we talked yesterday. Go ahead.
If we raise the $300 transfer fee to 350, and if we have a estimated 50 closings, that would be 17,500.
Yeah, if you look at the note I put up there, if we raise it to 350, Yeah, with the current budget at 15,000, if we raise it to 350, that would be 43 closings.
Mhm.
If we keep it at 300, that would be 50 closings. So, you know, you got to think that maybe this real estate heat is going to slow down a little bit,
Mhm.
maybe not.
We keep saying that.
I mean, we're currently at, I think we're currently at, let's see where we're at. I closed that file. I think we're currently at right around 50. We had 50 plus last year,
Mhm.
closings. I think this year we could hit 60. But again, you don't know how many we're
Right.
gonna have next year. How can you predict? It's like the stock market.
Exactly.
So anyway. So we need to decide on that budget line item. Like I said, if we leave it at 15,000 and we have 43 closings, it would hit, and when we raise the deal to 350, we'd have 40, that would cover 43 closings. Anything over 43, we'd be over budget, and being over budget on revenue isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
And we need a decision on
on the decision on the,
the
decision
amount.
on the board from the, and you don't, I don't know that you need a vote on this, but just
Okay.
if we put it in the budget that we're raising it to 350, and then when we vote on it, that'll cover it. So do we want to leave, do we want to leave it at 300, or do we want to raise it to 350 or some other number?
I think really we should consider raising it to 350. I don't know if there's an industry standard in the area, and if that's, shocking. It doesn't seem very shocking to me. I also don't think it would preclude anyone. If I were going to sell my condo, I wouldn't back out of the deal over $50 on a transfer fee. To me, this seems like a good idea.
I agree with that. I'm in favor of raising it to 350.
I support it as well.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Okay. I think we have a majority in favor of it.
Good. So that's that one. We'll come back to these two items here, because what we do later as we go through this will affect those. Currently, as I indicated to the board when I sent this spreadsheet out last night, currently we've got the assessments for 2022 exactly the same as 2021. So that would be no increase. That could change depending on discussion today and decisions made, but that's where it stands right now. So as you go through this, you might want to keep that in mind. It's administrative expenses. There was some considerable discussion yesterday on the annual meeting, whether or not that number should be raised to cover the costs of added promotion of the activities surrounding the annual meeting, specifically the owner's reception, which has been lightly attended the last couple of years. So is there any further discussion on that? Leave it at 9,000, increase it. What do you guys think?
I have a question on that. Was the light attendance during the pandemic and before the pandemic, was it much more?
It had been declining. You know what? I'm going to let John Niebling address this. He's closer to it than I. Go ahead, John.
He's muted.
John, unmute yourself.
Get your iPhone.
Okay, sorry, Stacy, I'm sorry. I started talking without unmuting. Yeah, if you look back several years, we had quite good attendance. I guess when I say quite good, I think we had 100 owners plus in earlier years. As Joe suggested, it has been declining over the years for a variety of reasons. And certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had, besides the fire, which may have discouraged attendance in 17, I believe. And then, of course, the last year there was, not this year, not last September, but the September before, because of COVID, there was no owner's reception. I also cited what I believe to be a factor, and that is that we've had so many new owners that a lot of them are not attuned as yet to the routines and the rhythms of the association. And then I think, to be honest, finally, and this is definitely a personal opinion, I think not pointing it out specifically to owners that there is an owner's reception in the way of an invite or a hold the date card or something like that. I guess it's a combination of so many new owners, and we almost kind of buried it last year by simply making a reference to it and said you can look, you get information off the website. And I had a number of owners, especially new owners, who suggested that they were not even aware that there was owner's reception. Personally, I think it's a good activity, especially in our world where we have Zoom meetings instead of in-person meetings. I think it's the one occasion where we really do have a sense of who's in the association, or at least a pretty good representation of who the association is, who the owners are. So I think it's worth doing. I do think that we've been poor boying ourselves a little bit on the budget. And Joe and I both have, watched this, and we've missed the budget for how many years in a row, Joe?
Several.
So my feeling was, if we got it up to 9, we could probably continue to do what we've been doing, plus maybe do some special notifications of events like the owner's reception.
John, may I make a suggestion? And that is to include with the mailings regarding the annual meetings and the elections, a color flyer for the reception, highlighting the benefits of attending and advertising a little bit for, what would be included in such a gathering, and to encourage people more.
Yeah, great idea. I think having something that stands out in that packet that calls, whether it's, probably color is a good way to call their attention. And then Joe made a good suggestion, I thought, yesterday, which was maybe, mid to late summer, send out a separate postcard, basically saying hold the date. I know you've all probably seen that kind of thing with such meetings.
I agree. I think it looks good, and maybe we could also, for our Facebook page, set up an event that people could reply to for those owners who are social media savvy. We could do an invite on Facebook too. Thanks for the background.
Paige could even send a nice little postcard.
Yeah, when I made the suggestion yesterday, what I was thinking was we send the annual meeting package out in August, early August, usually about the first week in August. And that gives the owners about a month to know what's going on, to find out about it, and read it if they read it, and determine whether they're going to come. If we sent that postcard out, that save the date postcard out, say in June, that would be 3 months ahead of time, and probably would get people put it on their calendars and things like that. So anyway.
I'm making notes.
Yeah. Because some people are planning vacations now.
So,
Okay.
So John, is it your suggestion to leave it at the 9,000 or?
Yes. Yeah. I think any less than that is unrealistic, as we have found out over the last, with the cost of food, et cetera. It just, the 7,500 just was not enough.
Yeah, those are all good ideas, and actually we were discussing here, we'll go ahead and paste something on the Facebook page pretty quickly. And that way people that are putting in vacation requests now, have a little more notice. Anybody that's paying attention to that. So, okay.
Okay, so that's all we had for extra discussion on this page. The bottom section there is personnel expenses, and that's our salaried staff, which includes Elisa, Gary, Tim, and Paige. Their salaries are separated from the rest of the salaries of the maintenance and service and security desk. We'll go to the operations page. And building and grounds, there was discussion yesterday about the need to increase the budget for the High Point and Gamble Oak exterior maintenance, because part of those building exteriors has been, even though we've been refreshing the wood exteriors with restaining and so forth, we haven't done anything to keep up the concrete columns, the concrete pillars, and the stucco, which is on the high on the siding in the buildings and also down around the skirting. So if we want to have some more discussion on those two items and see if we want to leave that where it is or change it.
Okay, so is that where we left it yesterday?
That's where we left it yesterday. We had been budgeting 20,000 per area, and the extra 5,000 is to cover the cost of painting the concrete columns and stucco.
Okay, I thought we decreased it, but if that's where we left it yesterday,
We
I
started
say-
at 27 and 28.
Yeah, we didn't
Took
cut
down
it.
to 25.
okay,
Cut it.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm good with that.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Not hearing anything. There was talk about maybe deferring or reducing in case we needed to, which at this point, we really don't, the way things have panned out. There was talk of cutting back or deferring some of the fog window work. I personally don't think we need to or want to do that. Keeping up with it is
There's
hard
a
enough.
few on a waiting list.
Yeah, we've got people on a waiting list right now, so. Any more discussion on that?
Hey, Joe, this is Eric. Just an observation, looking at the totals. Most of what is in this category is labor, is services. I'm guessing wages and salaries are going up 5 to 10%. It surprises me that this number actually is going down. I hope we've anticipated salary increase, not for, one window washers and grounds guys and everybody's getting raises. It's just seems a little bit out of sync with what's going on in the labor market.
Well, building maintenance doesn't include much, if any, labor, does it? Is that's
Building,
612? Is that, there's no labor
there's
there?
some contract labor in there.
Contract labor,
Little
I
bit.
guess, yeah.
Eric, to answer your question, Bill Griswold at Connections and I spent a little bit of time talking about the exterior maintenance numbers this year. Because I know the number's been the same forever. And he was pretty happy with how things have been going over the past several years until he went and talked about what are we missing. And that's why he suggested a $15,000 ad between Gamble and Pinecone. And, due to other expenses that we got coming up this year, I think we're just gonna have to do, bump that by 10 instead of 15, or 25 on High Point and 25 on Gamble. But he knows everybody's got some more money, that, he's paying more money. I think his billable hourly rate went up $3 or $4 an hour this year. So we're comfortable with the numbers that's on the budget.
So Eric brings up a good point. I'm looking, have we had any discussion with with Jeremy on the snow removal.
They haven't changed their rates.
I mean, window washing, there's elevator maintenance, that's a contract. Let's see. You think there's any need to consider raising some of those?
I don't,
You don't?
no, I don't.
Okay. All right. Clear this out.
Joe, this is Jerry. I just wanted to know along the lines of what Eric said, that I've had some discussions with some builders that I know, and things are to the point where, because of the escalating costs for both materials and labor and the scarcity of labor, that they're even afraid to quote anybody for any costs because it is so fluid right now. I tend to be, I guess, kind of conservative about this, and I think Eric is too, that we should have maybe some buffers in here in case the costs of some of the services that we're buying do increase during the year.
How would you propose to do that?
Escalation contingency.
Put an escalation contingency line item at the bottom, or add to each line item where we feel there's labor and materials involved, which is mostly everything. How would you propose to do that?
Yeah, I don't have off the top of my head a specific proposal, but maybe get some thoughts from others on the board. It may be that other people don't feel as queasy about things as I do. But so I'd like to hear a little bit of discussion about it.
Floor is open.
Yeah, for me, I kind of defer to Tim. I mean,
I mean, if everything went up 5%, say 10% on the whole budget for grounds and building, it'd be $45,000. And I frankly, I'm not concerned about it. I mean, if we go over 20 grand, is that gonna be a problem? If we need to add a contingency of some sort, maybe we add 5% as a contingency line, not knowing which budget line item might get hit. You know, the snow removal burns fuel. Fuel is twice as much as it was a year ago.
yeah,
So, you know, that's a place where we may be in trouble. But of a $70,000 number, how much of that is fuel? 40% of it? You know,
See Wayne's.
I would call attention to the comment that was just made online. I don't know if Gary's monitoring that, but you might want to read that. And his question is basically, if we have a budget of so much, what happens when we've used up that money during the year and then we have continuing costs beyond that? Do we just stop at that point? I think the general answer is no. In some cases, as you can see throughout the budget that Joe's presenting, we have cost overruns for many different line items because these are, when we do the budget, those are our best estimates of what the costs are going to be and what we need to come up with. So we don't have to stop when we use up the allocated amount in the budget.
Well, we always have line items that we never get to too. So inevitably there's always money for in other places that we can pull from.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, in my experience in dealing with this association's budget, which is many, many, many years, we have never got to the point where at the bottom line, all the way to the end, expenses have exceeded revenues. So there's where there might be overruns in some line items, there's corresponding underruns in other line items, to the extent that we basically never reach we tend to budget fairly conservatively as it is. So we have never experienced where we've run out of money.
there were a few instances this year where we made a conscious decision to exceed the budgeted amount. The security cameras, the bat mitigation. I think we consciously made a decision to go over on some ceiling replacements in pine cone. But that was all based upon, as we got well into the year, we knew we were going to be significantly under on, some landscaping things, some labor expense, some other things. So throughout the year, I communicate primarily with Joe to make those decisions, looking at the overall budget.
Yeah, if you look at this last line item on the operations budget, which shows the excess of revenues over expenses or deficit, and you zero in on this number right here, that's our expected surplus for the end of this year. So you could either say we under budgeted or we over budgeted by $115,000 for this year, or we underspent,
Underperform.
or a combination of the two. So, and that's fairly typical. I mean, as a matter of fact, in some years, we've had a fair amount more than that as a surplus. And somebody might want to ask the question, well, what do you do with that surplus? Our policy today is, and it has been for the last couple of years, is any surplus we have from one year's budget immediately goes into reserves for the next year.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think overall, we're pretty good with where we're at currently.
Okay. All right. This salaries, personnel expenses here, this is all of our maintenance. All of our maintenance salaries. And then utilities. Water, sewer, satellite TV, electricity, internet, all the services that we get. And again, this number right here indicates that we're budgeting for a balanced budget, and at this point remaining, we actually did raise the budget by 1.4%. If you look at this number, which is last year's budget, and we're budgeting more money this year. And then you might ask, well, how are we keeping dues flat if we did that? Well, if you look back at the revenue and expense section, the revenue section, you can see where we've got increased revenues in certain other areas that I'm highlighting. And that's the reason why we're able to do that. And keep the HOA fees flat.
We've kind of got an ongoing conversation here in the chat. about
On
that.
the transfer fee, what that is whenever there's a sale of a unit, there's a transfer fee added on
At closing.
at closing collected by the title company. And
It's to cover our costs.
yeah, and it's to cover the cost of all the paperwork and everything here. It ranges from 50 in the area, 5,500. There's some HOAs that charge a percentage of the sales price. We are pretty much middle of the road from what we can determine and have been. And so we're just bumping it up a little bit because of the total number that have
The increased work because
transactions.
of the number.
Yeah. the increased workload.
I bet it costs us more than $350 to do it.
Especially if we have to respond to a lender who wants that monstrous form filled
But we
out.
don't get closing docs.
Yep.
Yeah, chasing title companies for closing docs.
It's-
you know.
And it's multiple people here on the staff dealing with all those things too.
It's a small piece of the cost to buy and sell, and right now, sellers aren't feeling it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and also who pays it, it depends on the
Contract.
agreement, yeah. Some split it,
Some
some,
split it,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, any other Any more discussion or questions on the operations budget? I'll move on to capital. These are our one-time during any given year projects that we do. Again, we went through all this yesterday. The number of, you'll see a number of blank spaces here. These are items that were completed and are done and will be removed from the budget when it's finalized for next year. Go ahead.
I
What?
think we need to go back to the operations on
What's that?
code 624 grounds.
624 now.
That's 7,000.
Yes.
I need to add
Oh, okay.
the service that we buy every year moving forward. We aerate all grassy areas at High Point, Pinecone, and Gamble
Mm-hmm,
twice a year.
mm-hmm,
We also apply weed and feed
mm-hmm.
to all grassy areas in all three areas. That adds a total of $7,000 to the annual budget. I'd like to propose that come in the form of a sub account underground, but keep it in 624. So I'd like to bump that number from 25,000 to 32,000.
So how did we cover that before?
I had it in code 8.
You had it in the
I
capital
had
code
it in capital code under landscape improvements. This was really,
and it's not there now.
it's not in,
It's no place now.
it's no place now.
Okay.
And it is going to be an expense we incur every year moving forward. Aerate and weed and feed. Yep. Sorry, I missed that.
It's okay. So now we got a little number here to deal with, but we won't mess with that now until we finish the others, which, because that number may change, because as you can
Yeah.
see, the capital projects budget here does, from this page, does port over to here, so that we're looking at a total bottom line right there. Okay, so we'll go to capital now. And again, like I said, there's some items that were done this year that are either going to be completed this year, in which case there's no budget for next year, or there are items that we're going to be doing. Either we didn't do it this year and we're going to finish, and we're going to do it next year, or we didn't finish it this year and we're going to finish it up next year. So you'll see these few numbers here that remain from the 2021 capital budget items. This item here, which I think needs to be discussed, is the amount of reserves. In addition to the surplus from the prior year, we also put a designated amount in reserves from this line, from this budget page. And that'll show up on the permanent reserves page, and I'll show you that next. So that item there probably is going to have some discussion at some point today.
Yeah.
And then, are we done with this item, or does
No.
this item need to
No.
be discussed?
I was on the phone with the engineers last night, and in order to get a confirmation of our true scope of work, we're going to have to add testing of some supply lines. I asked the engineer, I said, what percentage of your projects that you've done included replacement of copper? And he
That's
said,
the sampling of the copper.
sampling. of
So
the
how do
copper.
they do this? Do they cut a piece of copper out and then splice a new piece in and send the
Yeah.
old piece away?
Our staff is going to find out what parts of the building and how many and how big. We're going to expose the pipe, cut out a pipe, patch it, ship the pipe to a testing lab, and they give us a projected useful life analysis of the copper. Says, okay, you got 10 years left on this copper. You can make a decision whether you want to go replace the copper. It has a huge impact on the total cost number. And that,
We know the cast iron's a problem. The cast iron drains are a problem. We don't know whether the copper is a problem.
And I also confirmed that the asbestos testing is gonna be 11,000, not 7,500 that I had in. So the 151.5 needs to be 161.
to cover both of those items.
Yes, yes. And they're both necessary in order, if we don't do them, we won't know the scope of the work. So that's important.
Okay. So you can see I just changed that number. And now if I go back over here, you can see this number has jumped up yet again. So it communicates. It's linked over.
Sorry.
What's that?
It's his fault.
It's just one. All this, you're doing all this. All right, so before we do any,
This Eric, just quick question. Is some part of that expensable in 2021 or is it all need to be in 2022?
Eric, to answer your question, the part that's been expensable in 2021 is on this line that I just highlighted.
Right.
Well, exactly. Some of it, but some of it has not been spent yet. So what I'm asking is of the increase
And
that
it'd be
Tim
done
just
before
mentioned.
the end of the year.
So are you going to do any of this in 2021?
We could, I don't know what the schedule of the asbestos guy is yet, but we could certainly do the copper this year.
I'd say do it this year. So then what we could do is we could take that and add to this
Add
amount,
6 to that, so
add six,
22.
add 6 to that amount, and that just reduces our current year's surplus,
Right.
which really doesn't factor into this budget.
Right.
It factors into next year's budget. So, make that 22,000 then. I said add
Yeah,
6
if
to
we
it,
had,
right?
if we had the copper testing to this year's budget or expense, then that would be 22,000. And then the 161 would go down to 155.
Okay. Good point, Eric.
Good catch.
All right. Okay, so before we have any more discussion on this line item, let me show you where we're at with permanent reserves. Right now, we had a beginning balance, or we will have a beginning balance of, as you can see, our ending balance for 2021 in our permanent reserves is 824,659. That number goes here as a beginning balance for 2022. These 4 items here are the components of the gross contribution to our permanent reserves for 2022. This line item here is our interest on our laddered CDs and our money market account in the 3 different banks that we have those in. This is the amount that is the surplus from 2020 from 2021 that we're putting into 2022's reserves. This is the amount that was on the previous page right here. So you can see that matches up. And then we have 2 units that the HOA owns, and we have a 3rd unit that the HOA leases from an owner and then sublets to at a profit to an employee. By the way, all 3 of these units are currently occupied by employees. I'm right on that, correct? Yes, am I not?
You are correct.
And we net $19,500 a year from those rentals.
As well as lots of goodwill from.
Yes.
And
Ability to have an employee.
Yes.
Priceless.
this amount here is Eric just sent me a message. It went away. Let me read it again here.
Did you see the chat?
There was a question about 16.9 going to landscaping in High Point.
Ask Eric, could you put that, the question you just sent me, It's in my, I think it went into my email. I just got a notice in the, well, wait a minute. I think I can call that up. Hold on.
But anyway,
Go ahead.
the decision was made. They had started up in High Point because it had had the least amount of work done ever as far as landscaping. And once the committee started up and the grounds crew started working, they started up in High Point. So the decision was made that because of the expenditures into the piping project, we don't have the money this year to do the entire property. So we're gonna start with High Point, and then our plan will be next year to do the other 3 areas, which would be the Lodge, Gamble Oak, and Pinecone.
You're talking about the capital.
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes, we're spreading it out. We're not able to do everything in 1 year.
Was this also related to what we talked about yesterday regarding doing any kind of landscaping irrigation in areas that are right up against the borders of the property?
Now well, for the total package in landscaping, yes, but specific to that, it was just for the plantings, rocks, just general stuff like that. Didn't have to do with the irrigation.
Well, there's irrigation. There is, yeah. Eric, I saw your message, Eric, and I'll get back to your question in a second. So what we got for landscaping is no.
Well,
Here.
I'm assuming Jerry's question was installing new irrigation behind the buildings.
Yeah,
And
and we
that
dropped,
is-
we dropped
yeah,
that.
we dropped that. That is not included.
And the main reason we dropped it is because the majority of that property is not ours. It's Glacier Club's. Our boundaries are very tight to our buildings. And so a lot of that area that is mowed back there is like, especially behind Gamble Oak and High Point, there's not much of it in Pinecone, except right behind the area where Eric's unit is. And he waters that.
And Tim, do you want to address she just asked if we should stop mowing the areas, but.
I met with Taryn this morning. We looked at the plat and we know where the pins are for the
Mhm,
corners.
mhm.
Next spring, I think we're gonna throw some flags on the pins, meet with Glacier. So what are you gonna do with your land here? We're not gonna irrigate it. We're not gonna mow it.
They're not gonna do anything.
Well, we gotta plant something else.
If you look, if I take Gamble Oak, for example,
Mhm.
anything on our side of that berm, they don't care about. Like along hole number 5,
Yeah.
and they've got that berm, they put that berm in there back in 20 years ago. And they don't care about anything on our side of that berm, even though it's their property.
I would think too, for what we're mowing right now, since we did have a rodent problem on property, the further out we mow is gonna help with that.
Yeah, I don't think they care if we mow it.
Yeah,
They probably wouldn't care if we watered it either.
I don't wanna pay for the water.
No, we don't.
yeah.
Just,
But
just
I,
as- yeah.
yeah, as long as we're not going overboard, what we're doing now is for our benefit.
Just to support what Joe and Rick are saying, behind our area in Pinecone, there's actually a fire hydrant. And when we had our little fire down there, it was hard for the fire department to find it because it was so overgrown. It's on their property, but they don't even do the safety mowing, let alone the optional mowing.
Stop watering it, Eric.
I'm not watering down there. No, I'd be mowing it if I was watering it, Jerry.
That's a good point, Eric. That ought to be brought up to Glacier, that the area around that fire hydrant should be kept clear. I mean, definitely. I mean, you weren't here. You weren't here.
I got here right after.
You weren't here when we had the fire at the south end of Pinecone. And that's, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Eric asked the question, and it relates to this here. Could we also do the asbestos testing in 2021?
Contractor schedule is gonna drive that.
And you don't know what that is yet.
It took them 3 days to get a proposal to me. They're swamped.
All right. Let me leave it the way it is.
If we can, we will.
I'll get it done as fast as we can.
I mean, if you do, it's fine. I mean, it'll still come out of this year's budget, but, and then you'll have,
If we can do it, I'll get it done.
and then because we've got the, we see that we have the surplus there to do it, right? So, I mean, wouldn't be a problem. And then you'd just be over budgeted on this line item a little bit. Okay, so I think I covered the reserves page. So again, we'll have the way it's set up right now. You can see in 2021, we started out with $613,823, and we increased the reserves by over $200,000 this year. There was impetus for that, based on our long-term asset replacement, having to do roofs and things like that we know are out there. So the board made a conscious decision last year to heavily increase our reserves. Where we sit right now, we would only be increasing the reserves this year from 825 to 850, so only about a $25,000 increase. So that's where we're at with that at the moment. So let me quickly go through the service and security desks. The board needs to decide if on these two line items here, whether we're okay with raising the administrative fees on long-term rentals and on long-term and short-term rentals. Currently we're charging $45 a month for any unit that's rented long-term, and $30 a month for any unit that's rented short-term. The proposal is to raise both of those by $5 from 50 to 35 respectively. So if that is left in this budget, the board will be approving that as well when we vote on the budget as a whole. So I don't know if anybody wants to have a discussion on that. I know some people are sensitive to rental program costs.
Yeah. There's tons connected to the potential funding of the Penny Fixing lines.
Who is that?
Wayne Alexander.
Yeah, I would, the answer to that would be when the board goes to vote on this, there'll be discussion by the board and then discussion by the owners, and that's when you can do it.
Yeah. Towards the end, Wayne, we'll have an opportunity for that.
Don't forget it, Okay, so I've heard no discussion on this particular item, so we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay, these budget amounts provided by Paige do include the raises to those amounts. So I'm gonna clear that out. All right, that was the only thing on this particular page. And as you can see, this budget is balanced. This budget is kind of separate from everything else. The only connection between the two is that this amount right here is a revenue for the service and security desk, and it shows up as a cost down here on the administrative expense budget. So I guess the only thing to really talk about at this point is reserves, whether or not the board is comfortable with how much we're contributing to reserves. And if they want to contribute more, what the net effect on the rest of the budget will be, especially assessments for next year.
Joe, can you update the overall picture at this point after the modifications that were just made to the spreadsheets to what the bottom lines are? And in terms of how much assessment would be required, and what increase that would represent?
Right now, Jerry, we'll need to either cut the budget somewhere by $10,500, or we'll have to add to the assessment fees $10,500. That would be, I mean, at the current rate, at the current assessment rate we're at of a total of 2.2 million. Each time you raise, if you raise assessments $25,000, that's 1%. So 10%, so $10,000 is going to be something less than 0.5% increase.
What are we doing with the 10% contribution to reserves? Where are we at with that?
10%.
Are we at a 10% of our budget?
Oh, yeah, we're way over that.
Okay.
It's right now, the total contribution to reserves at this point is $300,670.
Okay.
So it's well in excess of
All right.
10%.
Yeah,
The 10% is the amount that's required to stay in compliance with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac financing rules.
Yeah, just, Joe, just if I could maybe chime in a bit there, because I know there was some discussion on it yesterday when I wasn't on. I spoke to Cornerstone, the lender that I got to approve, Tameron. I had them looking at the condo policies last couple of weeks. Tameron is still approved for conforming financing. The caveat to that is the lodge units that have adjoining rooms in that adjoining door are the ones that are a problem. Fannie is just really locked down on those because they just, it's kind of hard to argue they're not glorified hotel rooms. So the lodge, the 491 square foot lodge units that have the adjoining doors are the ones that were declined this past year.
Okay. The other thing that I've heard, Scott, and I don't know if you've had any conversations with Julie Glenn lately, but she's saying that with the current market, the current real estate market, low interest rates and the way real estate is moving, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are actually not doing any loans for our types of properties, even if we do meet the requirements. I don't know if they're actually, I don't think they're declining them or what, but I got that from Julie Glenn yesterday.
Nah, I don't think that's correct. I mean, like I said, I just spoke to Cornerstone yesterday, and we're still fully approved.
No, I'm not saying we weren't approved. It's just that they're not. I don't know that I got the right message, but she seemed to think that they were not doing loans for. They wouldn't be doing loans.
They're just not originating.
They're not. Yeah, they're doing portfolio loans instead.
Well, that's some lenders she's talking to are doing that. Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you right now, Cornerstone will do one and sell it to Fannie.
Okay.
Keep in mind, Fannie and Freddie are not lenders; they're investors.
No, they're investors.
So the mortgage company has to individually get a condominium unit approved, and then that mortgage company is rep and warranting compliance to Fannie Freddie standards. And as I said, Cornerstone still considers Tameron approved, with the exception of those smaller lodge units.
Okay. Well, we're compliant either way.
Yeah, I just figured I'd bring it up since I know it's been a discussion.
In the manner in which we do it, we're compliant.
Yeah, I got it. Little creativity goes a long way.
Yeah,
So maybe since that's a good number, can we fix this 10,000 by reducing the,
Contribution.
yeah,
we can either,
That's just a suggestion.
we can either reduce the contribution to reserves, or we can add
take
to the-
something else out.
or take something else out, or we can increase assessments. Those are the choices.
I don't want to raise assessments.
Yeah.
We raised some 4.5 last year. I don't want to do it again this year.
No, I agree with that. And if we're that far over on our reserves, 10 grand's not gonna
Yeah.
make for a
Sure.
hill, right?
For historical perspective, we have, when we raised them, I think it was actually 5.4% last year. When we raised them 5.4% last year, that was the first raise. And I could put it up here, but it's
Like 2014 or something.
What's that?
Said it was like 2014 or
Yeah,
2016.
it was several years since we
Yeah.
raised them. And the average raise in assessments over the last 10 years, average, is something like 1.9%.
Yeah.
So to raise
Yeah.
it 2 consecutive years,
Yeah.
that would be a bump in that curve.
Yeah, I do not want to do that.
Okay. Hey, Joe. Two
Yeah.
ideas. On the revenue side, I think you agreed to move the fees to 350. If you do 50 closings at 350, you add $2,500 of revenue. If you don't like that idea, the other thing is the asbestos testing that I'm talking about, I think Tim mentioned, is $11,000. If you prepay that in 2020 or 2021, you can move that to a 2021 expense, whether you actually get your results by then or not.
I could do that.
You do that?
I could do that. I'd be comfortable doing that.
Okay, so we're gonna go back over here, what we did before. And raise this
To 33.
33.
and corresponding to reduce this to what?
144,
Back to where it was.
back to where it was yesterday morning.
Okay. Still got, oh, that's right, it was 10,500. Okay.
Let's take it out of the, one of those, like the clogged windows.
Go back to
Or-
capital. More up with the ads.
That's a 500.
The,
Yeah.
go back to capital.
Yeah.
And what was I had 16 in there.
What are you looking at?
Hey, Scott,
Yes, sir.
we've had a question about removing the doors on those smaller lodge units. Would that have any effect on it?
I wouldn't know until we
Till
actually
it
get somebody.
actually, till it actually came up?
I used to own a unit lodge. I owned unit 335.
Mhm.
And when I remodeled it, I blocked it off. I took that door out and drywalled it.
Yeah,
So
you
if
just
the
have to
owner,
make sure
so
the
if
other
the
side-
owner of the unit next door opened his door up, be a wall.
Yeah, but we've had people who didn't finish it. They just blocked it off and the door opens and you see, studs. You can't do that.
Can't do
You
that.
have to make it
To tell you the
finished.
truth, I don't know if that's what was done in my
Yeah,
case or not.
yeah.
It was
I've
a long
heard-
time ago.
I've heard Gary a lot talking to people about doing that.
So you gotta finish both
You gotta
sides.
fix it.
Yeah.
Whether it's just, it could be plywood or,
Is
I mean,
that- Yeah, I would think it would pass muster, but it might actually require that it be drywall, but isn't that a common element? You'd have to remove it if you sold the unit, right? If you drywalled it?
Scott, I did this probably 20 years ago. So
Yeah,
I don't think it was an issue back then.
before you had to enforce it yourself on the board.
Right. And actually, you know who did the work? Taco Maintenance.
Yeah,
It was back when Chuck Mosley was working here. I don't even know if you remember him. The guy that
no,
was. working-
I don't, but I would think if you drywalled it off, that the units would likely get past the approval. And keep in mind, Fannie approval Also, you have to have full appliances. There's other requirements. You can't just have those goofy dryer units and so.
Okay, you need to spend $500 somewhere
Well, adjust 144
to
whatever it
149.
takes. No, to 143.5 or 144.
Oh, $5, $500.
$500.
Yeah, I was thinking
Is
5,000.
it 500 less
No,
or
it'd be
500?
144,500.
There, that should do it.
Doesn't that increase?
Nope.
Oh.
No, it wasn't a negative, it was a
excess.
positive.
Yeah.
So now it's right. Okay. Okay, is there any more discussion on reserves? Are we comfortable
Well,
with that?
It relates to reserves, Joe. Did the board discuss something with a lodge roof?
What about it?
Well, statistically, we are at the end of its life.
Yeah,
Jerry, you want to talk about that?
Actually, I think I defer to Tim on this. I think we've got some time left. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay.
We decided to go.
Yeah, we've been looking at the long-term asset replacement schedule and looking at the number or the lack of response requests to roof leaks. I think we're okay, Eric, pushing that roof replacement down the road at least 2 years. We've had 0 roof leaks in this building since I got here a year ago.
that's good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's really good.
So that was our conversation when Jerry and I were working on the schedule a couple weeks ago. We also did adjust the number up. I think I've got, we've got to look at that, but I think I raised the price of the roof replacement up to a total of 800,000 spread over 2 years.
Ouch.
And
800.
again, Joe, I
It
guess
was only, when did we do the lodge remodel? It's probably what, 5 years ago?
about 5 years ago.
When we did the lodge remodel, we had a quote to redo that roof. 250,000. We should have bought it then.
Yeah, that's it. I could even on the long-term asset replacement schedule, I think we were carrying 400,000 4 years ago when we couldn't do it as part of a bigger project. So that kind of tells you what's going on in some of the construction trades.
Yeah.
So I would just say, Joe, related to this issue of reserves and long-term asset replacement. 2022 is a relatively light year in terms of expected expenses, and it mostly has to do with the plumbing waistline studies. But we're looking at significant increases in capital-related costs in 23 and 24. So if we don't continue to build up our reserves now, we're definitely going to have to do it following year and probably year after that as well, I would guess.
It was 2016.
16.
Yeah, I think, Jerry, I think we'll be in a much better position next year. The hit we're taking is that 144,000 right now for this year.
Yeah, but next year we could be looking at doing the project, which I know you.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the key point though, Joe, is that you got 850,000 showing in reserves and you're talking about an $800,000 roof. You're down to less than what the board policy allows.
Well, you and I both know, Eric, that when we start doing roofs,
yeah,
it's not all coming out of reserves. It's a portion of it might, and there's likely to be a special assessment. I know that's that's like a 4-letter word, but there it is.
Well, I think we also need to recognize that an $850,000 bid today could very much, I mean, that is likely to come down in the future.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, I paid $8 a piece for 2x4s this past summer, and I know they've come down since then. And so things have to normalize once supply chain issues get back to normal.
Yeah, they opened up transportation between US and Canada, and that's brought prices down. because the US is,
Especially lumber.
yeah, because they're getting the majority of our lumber from Canada,
Okay.
so. Okay, so I guess I need to throw it out to the board.
You need to make a motion to accept the budget, second, and then have discussion by the board
Yeah,
and
okay.
discussion by owners, and I know Wayne
Yeah,
wants to.
yeah,
chime
yeah.
in. Yeah,
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the budget as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion amongst board members? Okay, if you want to go ahead and unmute him, Wayne, you wanted to contribute?
Is he under Dottie?
Yes.
yeah, he'd be,
He's-
it
he's
was
by
right there.
himself.
Right there, right there.
They gotta be together.
Yeah.
Wayne, are you there?
He's been
Chatting.
chatting with under Wayne.
I think it's fine. At least Alexander's the same.
Where did Dottie go?
Yeah, she was right up in the corner, right there.
Right there.
Wayne, Dottie, unmute yourself and speak.
Or forever hold your peace.
He is trying. Well, I'm trying.
Okay,
to-
Mark.
It says he's trying.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
Mark, let
Mark has something.
Mark has a question, so we'll wait till they get their deal fixed.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment on behalf of the committee,
Landscaping committee.
landscaping committee. Out of our mission statement, the purpose of our committee is to upgrade the landscaping at Tamron, not to maintain the status quo. Maintenance will help, increased maintenance would help, but there's a lot of places that are so far gone that it's going to require an improvement in order to get the job done. That said, one of our first priorities in our list of priorities, and I think we had 8, was not to have any cost increase to homeowners that would result in an increased dues assessment. So we're very respectful of the work that this board has done and not done that. And we realized that because of that, perhaps the approach that we had in our initial plan that Tim budgeted, and we are very supportive of the budget that Tim did, and we're very disappointed that it wasn't able to be approved, will have to be done a little bit slower and more incrementally. That's some of the result of that is what Rick mentioned earlier. We had planned on maybe moving through the entire community and tilling up the beds and replacing the vegetation. Well, the budget won't allow for that. So we're starting at High Point and we'll move on down and address each complex as the money allows. I think though that to satisfy owners' concerns, in this summer, we'll hear concerns. We'll hear concerns down at Gamble Oaks. So why are they getting it up there and we're not getting it down there? So the way that we satisfy those concerns is to have a firm plan in place to say, guys, this is the plan. And it's going to get done and it's in place. Be patient. I've been told to be patient, so we'll have to tell them to be patient. What the committee and what wasn't in Tim's budget and what I think maybe Dottie is going to want to say is that as part of that plan, we would like to have a professional look at the landscaping at Tamron and for the individual units, develop a plan on paper so we could see what the revisions are going to look like. This isn't much different than, say, for example, the architectural committee looks very carefully at window designs. When we redesign the inside of our units and we remodel, we look at the design before we let the carpenter loose. much like the plumbing problem, doing a study of the plumbing before we let the contractor loose. To see what's going. We would like a plan. Again, that is not, the total cost of that may not be available in this year's budget. But what, and it's from, in an incremental approach, what we would like to do, and a little bit more background, I've talked to a landscape architect here in Durango. He would be willing to come out on a consult basis for about a half day, probably cost about $500, and tell us what is going to be needed in a plan and tell us what it's going to cost. My request to the committee today would be, and maybe from last year's funds, we could come up with $500. Tim, I don't think all of the landscape money was spent last year. Allow him to come out and give us a consult and tell us what's going to be involved to develop the type of drawings and plans that the committee would like. Maybe we'll proceed, maybe we won't. But that would be a start.
Joe, you had a comment about a professional landscape architect.
Well, it's just a personal opinion, you know, and from my observations, I don't have a problem with what Mark's asking for at this point.
Okay.
$500. So, yeah, I'm fine with that, and that should be in this year's budget. You can do it before the snow starts flying. But my thoughts on landscaping are that, you know, you talk about improvements. I don't know that we need wholesale improvements. I think we need enhancements and maintenance. And I don't know which one of those is the priority. If you'd asked me the middle of the summer, I would have said maintenance was the priority because things were not being well maintained. And that's why it didn't look as good as it should. But anyway, that's just my
And we'll
two
get
cents.
it
But I don't have any problem with
We'll get it
doing what you're asking for there.
A lot of thought, you know, not only in appearance, but one of the things that's near and dear to everybody's heart is water conservation. Our landscaping here was planted 50 years ago, more or less. At that time, water wasn't a big concern. Beds were planted that require a lot of water to be dumped on them to grow. And in 2021, 2022, maybe we want to change course on it. But that's next month. You know, again, thank you. Budget-wise, we'd like to move forward incrementally. And most important, we'd like to move forward with a process that keeps the committee relevant. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mark.
Wayne is now unmuted. So
Okay.
you can speak.
Okay, go ahead, Wayne.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you loud and clear.
Great. I just wanted to make a suggestion based on something we did here at our own homeowners association in Texas. And it's really worked out well to build our capital improvement fund. And basically, the ownership here approved assessing a fee that is a capital improvement fee that's paid at the closing on any new sale. And so, and what that equated to was a year's worth of dues or assessments. And it goes directly into the capital improvement fund. And it was a way for us, we were way behind on funding capital improvements and way behind on building reserves. And it was a really powerful way to get there quickly. And I just wanted to bring that up to the board because it worked here and everybody approved it here. And it's really helped. And in our situation, it was about $3,000 per transaction when a closing came up, and hadn't hurt resale, hadn't hurt anything. It's just like nothing happened. And that was about 2 years ago. And I just wanted to bring that up as a potential to kind of get caught up, if we will, and maybe even prepare in advance for the upcoming fix in the lodge. And just want to throw that out there to the board for consideration.
And Wayne, that's an excellent idea. In fact, Eric had come across that down in Florida also and had emailed all the board members. And we had kind of discussed it via email. And that was something that we wanted to address later. We kind of planned on talking about it in the January board meeting.
Yeah, if I could comment on that as well, I think it's a very good idea. And one of the reasons I do believe it's a very good idea is that we have $800,000 in reserves right now. And everybody who's here has been contributing to that. So if we do a major project and remove that money, that means the people that were here paid. Anybody who buys new hasn't. So it's easy to justify.
Yeah, and you don't waive your year's assessments. I mean, you pay that fee at closing, you still pay your dues that first year too. It's not in lieu of. So
Yeah, I got you, Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have it the other way.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
tell
not
you,
a one-year advance payment of assessments. It's a fee at closing.
So if you guys do that, it would just be an additional in January.
Right.
It would just be over budget on revenues. We don't want to plan for that.
No, we don't want to plan for it because we don't know how many closings there are going to be. So
you'd have to have a vote. Like,
it would just be an increase.
A nice, yeah.
It would go right into reserves. You know, it wouldn't flow through the operations budget or anything like it. Go right into reserves.
Yeah, it wouldn't be operational money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I strongly support such a policy as well. To me, there's a question about whether it should be a flat fee per transaction or whether it should be based on a percentage of the sale amount. And same thing for the transfer fees. I brought that up, but I guess that didn't go anywhere.
I like the idea. I like the idea that Wayne put forth that his association did. Just make it a one year's base assessments.
right.
Not the TV and internet, just
Well,
1
right.
year base assessments, and that is higher or lower based on the size of the unit too.
So
yeah.
50 transactions in a year equals $280,000 into the reserve.
Are your assessments there fixed per unit, Wayne, or are they variable?
No, they're fixed.
They're
Well,
fixed.
there's two levels. I'll go backwards. There's two levels of assessments. There are two levels, but not as complex as what Tamron is.
This would be simple enough to manage. It's just 1 year's worth of base assessments.
It's that
So
simple.
For example, for a lodge unit, it would be what? $3,000 maybe. Maybe
I'm sorry?
Maybe $2,500, something like that for a lodge unit.
I just took my assessment times 50 is 280,000.
Yeah, 1,158 for an IU.
That's the base assessment year.
It would be depending on what unit you own
That's a
or what
quarter.
unit you
So
bought.
it'd be about, so for a lodge unit, it'd be about $4,000.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And depending if there's an IL, I don't know what the IL.
They're a little higher. Yeah. I was just looking for a baseline. Yeah.
Again,
1,200.
yeah, it's an excellent idea that we will address in the January meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to make the decision on it today. I mean, and you'd probably want to start it out where it wouldn't affect any current contracts, because you can't surprise them with that.
And
Say,
that's
oh,
what
by
I-
the way,
That's what I need to do for the 350 as well.
yeah,
When you want. me
Yeah,
to do that,
it's
any
you still pay the transfer fee.
yeah. Well, the transfer fee, I think you can make that effective January 1. Yeah.
Hey, I think it might make some
You
sense
might
to
want to, and you need to notify
I've got
real estate about it. Yeah.
you need to talk to Julie Glenn about it and just determine if there's going to be any adverse effect. I don't think that there would be, but I think we need to talk to the realtors about it as well.
Well, and I think it was mentioned by Wayne, and my experience as well is that it actually was voted on by the total membership, Joe. So
That's
it's
right.
not something that just happens. Everybody's
would-
going to get a chance to vote on it.
I get that, Eric and Wayne,
Yeah.
but why would anybody who's a current owner vote against it?
Oh, no, I get it. It's just
Exactly.
that- No, it's just
Exactly.
that you don't need to notify people because they're going to have to vote. Yeah.
The only trepidation was the people who, as I think Scott just pointed out, realtor kind of perspective, they're always going to weigh in and say, oh, that's going to affect sales. that's going to affect sales, but I can probably get 1 or 2 or 3 realtors in this neighborhood to write a note to anybody that wants to listen and tell them it hadn't had one effect at all on, I mean, sales are brisker, faster, stronger than ever in our neighborhood, and we haven't skipped a step.
And the buyer would appreciate the fact that they're contributing to reserves. They.
Exactly.
Reserves are healthy.
The only
Because-
negative is that we didn't do it 2 years ago.
Because it's.
Yeah, well, hindsight's 2020, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah. I don't know, we're gonna see the same brisk sales we've been seeing.
Every time I
Kind of
look
like an
at it,
insurance policy, kind of like an insurance policy you're paying up front when you buy, that's going to avoid you having to pay the big assessment down the road.
every time I look at sales transactions here in the lodge, I say, why the hell didn't I wait 2 years to sell my lodge unit?
Right.
Why didn't I buy one 2 years ago?
Yeah, why didn't I buy one 2 years ago, right?
Okay, so getting back to the budget with the board, all in favor?
Any other?
Is there anybody else that had any comment?
Let's move forward.
You getting any chats?
No, no.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the budget as currently presented, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried and we will present the budget to the ownership. Okay, John, 6-0.
Thank you. And by the way, was Greg the second?
Who seconded it?
I believe it was Greg who seconded.
That's
Greg.
what I thought I heard.
On now, so she that may have
Thank
been-
you.
Kathy's on now too. Okay, Kathy's on now too, so it was 7. Okay, the next thing I had on the agenda was the plumbing stack. And
Yeah.
basically, for anybody that doesn't know what we've been talking about is the piping in the property wide, but primarily here in the lodge. We're looking at, and that was what that 144,000 was, is to determine what the cost of replacing and trying to get an idea so that we can determine how we want to proceed with this. And there's a couple things we have to do before then, and then we can determine the scope of the work. And then there's an organization that we're working with that can help us determine exactly what the cost is going to be. And once we get that, then we'll decide how we want to proceed. But as of right now, we can't tell anybody with any certainty at all what it's going to cost, what the scope is going to be, anything like that. And that's what we're trying to determine.
The current timeline on knowing fully what it's going to cost and what it's going to look like is into the third quarter of next year, right?
No, it's on the engineer, talked to the engineers last night, and it'll be July.
July, so mid-year.
Bids, hard bids.
Hard bids mid-year.
Yeah, we'll have a rough order of magnitude in February or March,
Mhm.
ballpark guesstimate, and hard bids in July.
So this will be something that'll be for the
Yeah.
2023 budget.
Yeah, it won't be something that will probably even start in 2022 if that's the way we choose to proceed.
Looks like you've got fixing broken pipes every week.
And Joe or Rick, you guys, or Tim, you guys want to mention the magnitude of what we're facing with replacing that piping?
No, because we
don't know what it is.
We have no, we've heard figures
We-
miles apart.
We can't, yeah, I mean, a number would be irresponsible right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have to replace the copper. I don't know if I have to abate asbestos. Those are two huge pieces of the scope. So we have no idea.
Yeah, once we get an idea, then we can start disseminating information.
When we get that information in mid-year next year, it would be prudent to let real estate know that for disclosures that
Yeah.
that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that?
So, okay, the last item that I have on the agenda. Sotheby's right now is currently, I think everybody knows where their office is, where Julie Houston was, around the corner, across from base camp, basically. They are requesting to move to the coffee business room across from the front desk in that area there. We have told them that if we would decide to do that, they would have to pay current market value rent on that.
We
Which,
also have to pay the construction costs.
yeah, plus all construction costs.
We
Every,
would not, we would, if we did, even if we did it, and I don't think it's the right thing to do, we should not have
No participation.
HOA should have no participation
yeah,
in the cost.
it would be totally up to them. Discussions that we've had right now so far, our staff is opposed to it, but wanted to throw it out to the board for discussion.
Every time we've talked about using that space, I have gotten the no way people convene there when they're waiting for the shuttle. That space is used heavily in the winter.
Yeah, and that was brought up in discussions we had.
Yeah.
And we also.
Trust me, I've tried to use that space for 3 or 4 things and I got shot down every time. So
Well, and years ago, Joe, wasn't that was Julie Houston's office was up front like that?
It was.
Wasn't
it
it?
was-
Yeah,
it
so
was
we've already
previous.
been there. Yeah, we've already been there, done that.
Yeah, years ago. The other thing is we've put in the budget to reinstitute coffee service, and that's where it goes. So, I mean, that's a small thing, but you wouldn't have any place for the coffee service. If
What's fair market rent for that space?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know what commercial space rental is anymore.
well, I think it also maybe should be pointed out to them. We just remodeled the whole damn space for them a year ago and moved them in there.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did we pay for that? I
uh,
don't think we paid. I don't think we paid for that, Scott.
I think they paid for it, but I mean, we just did it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was one of those things where from the staff side, there wasn't a whole lot of support for it, but I felt like we should at least discuss it and throw it out there for discussion.
They threw an offer out at 6,000 a year.
for rent.
So,
I mean, what was the logic behind it? I mean, half the time, I mean, I'm not up there all the time, but I don't see them in the office a lot of the time anyway.
They say it's better access for them. They're more visible. It's people walk in the front door, they're right there. That's what they're looking at.
But you're not there, you're not very visible anyway.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, they're there about half the time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
so,
Sign that shows that there's an office inside of there. I think that's, I think you have to be visible to be bringing money or bringing people in as they enter the door. The signs there, all they got to do is follow the directions and where their office is.
The front desk directs them.
yeah,
Yeah.
so. I think I think the overall feeling seems to be we're pretty much not in favor of it. So. Okay, with that pretty much completes what we had on the agenda. Is there,
You can ask if there's any other business.
yeah, is there any other business anybody has like to discuss? Any other comments from Anyone?
Good job.
Okay, with that, then I will make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
Great meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay.
Who was the seconder?
Jerry.
Jerry?
Jerry? Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. 7-0.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We appreciate everyone's comments and input.